Thomas Andrews Jr. was born in 1873 in Comer, Northern Ireland. His father was a member of the Privy Council of Ireland, and his maternal uncle, Lord William Peary, was the principal owner of the Belfast shipbuilding company Harland and Wolff. Needless to say, he was born into a very successful family. He was educated at home by a private tutor up until he was 11 and attended the Royal Belfast Academical Institution in 1884. At the age of 16, he left the institution and began his apprenticeship at the shipyard of Harland and Wolff. Despite his uncle partially owning the company, he started from the ground up and also studied technical design at Belfast College of Technology at night. His apprenticeship lasted for 5 years, the last 1.5 of which he spent in the drawing office. During the 1890s, he was the head of the repair department and was involved in the construction of several ships, including the Oceanic and the Baltic. It is said that he was very popular within the company and rose up the ranks to become the manager of construction works in 1901. Known for his innovative designs, he became the managing director and the chief of the drafting department at Harland and Wolff in 1907. That year, White Star Line decided to build 3 new ships under the Olympic-class liners named Olympic, Britannic, and Titanic. Andrews served as the chief designer for all 3 ships. Construction of the ships began in 1907 for Olympic and 1909 for Titanic. It was during this time, in 1908, that Thomas married Helen Barber. In 1910, they had a daughter. Thomas Andrews was the head of the Guarantee Group, which did quality checks of the ships during their maiden voyages, and had sailed with ships he had built earlier, including Adriatic, Oceanic, and Olympic. He did the same with Titanic, and along with his group of 9 engineers and mechanics, he traveled to Southampton to board the ship on its maiden journey to America on April 10, 1912. Throughout the journey, he continued to take notes about possible cosmetic improvements and was in his cabin perusing the blueprints when the Titanic hit an iceberg at 11:40 p.m. on April 14th. The ship's captain, Edward John Smith, sent a message summoning Andrews to the bridge to examine the damage. Andrews personally inspected the ship and discussed the damage with the captain, finally coming to the conclusion that the ship's sinking was a mathematical certainty. He informed the captain of this fact at approximately 12:25 on the morning of April 15th. He also notified the captain that the 20 lifeboats on the ship were not enough to save all on board. He subsequently played a major role in the evacuation of Titanic and went from cabin to cabin, urging passengers to wear their lifebelts and move up to the boat deck. Many people were unaware of the severity of the damage or the urgency of the situation, since everything was happening so slowly at the beginning, while Andrews tried his best to make sure that the limited lifeboat capacity was filled to the full. Unfortunately, in the early boarding of the lifeboats, this was not accomplished, as many people did not want to board a tiny lifeboat in the middle of the ocean, and many of those lifeboats left half full. In one of the enduring images of this story, Thomas Andrews was reportedly last seen by a steward on the ship after approximately 2 a.m., with Andrews standing alone in the first-class smoking room with his arms folded, looking at the Plymouth Harbor painting above the fireplace. This led to the popular belief that Andrews may have made no attempt to escape and waited in the smoking room for the end. Although this has become one of the most famous stories of the Titanic disaster, there is evidence to show that the steward in question left the ship in lifeboat number 15 at approximately 1:40 a.m., half an hour before his supposed sighting of Andrews. However, there are stories of other sightings around 2 a.m. where he was seen on the back of the boat deck. He began frantically throwing deck chairs into the ocean for people to use as flotation devices. In addition, Mess Steward Cecil Fitzpatrick claimed to have seen Andrews and Captain Smith together on the bridge just a few minutes before the ship began its final plunge, and that both men jumped overboard just before the bridge was submerged. Thomas Andrews was never seen again. His body was never recovered. He was 39 years old. One of the first memorials to a Titanic victim was built in his hometown of Comer, and it opened in 1914. 5 years after the tragedy, in 1917, his widow Helen married a former apprentice at Harland and Wolff who had known Thomas. They had 4 children together. Helen died in Belfast in 1966. Thanks for watching profiles from the Titanic.